The following recording took place on the 18th of December 1967 with the woman called Alice Green. The medium was Leslie Flint, accompanied by George Woods and Betty Green, no relation. The following is an edited version. Betty asked Alice whether she knew anything about spiritualism before passing over. Alice: I had a friend who was a spiritualist, used to try and talk to me about it. I was interested, but not really interested in meetings, and went occasionally. I was a Baptist, but not a good one. My mother and father were both religious people. Betty asked if she was bewildered when she found herself on the other side. Alice: No, I was not. I took it in my stride. I knew there was something, but I didn't know quite what. After I left the cemetery and my funeral, I went back to my own people. They'd all gone back for a bit of a tuck-in, like they do after a funeral. They were all talking about me, and I was sitting around watching them. No one took any notice of me, and I thought, well, there's not much point in staying here, so I left. I went up and down the high street, but no one took any notice. Then I saw my husband coming. He'd been dead for about 50 years. He was killed in the First World War. I was a bit annoyed with him, as I thought he'd have come to my funeral, as I thought he'd have been waiting. Anyway, we soon patched things up. He took hold of my hand and said, there's nothing to worry about. I said, I'm not worried. I knew there was something after death. The next thing I knew, I was sitting in a nice little room in a pleasant house. It was his place. His mother was there, but I still couldn't make out why they hadn't been to my funeral, as I thought that all have been there. He said that he knew I was coming over, but thought I should get my bearings. I didn't know what he meant by that, and I said, I thought you'd have been there when I came over. He said, we just wanted you to have a little experience so that you could see that you'd finished with Earth. At the funeral, there were my 2 daughters and their husbands, and several of my neighbours and people I'd known, and Barbara, my little granddaughter, was there. They all came, but I was surprised my husband didn't come. Seeing he'd been dead for many years, I'd have thought he'd have made a point of being there. We had a talk and he told me all about his life and things on his side of life. Well, my side now. He said, we'll go out for a little walk, and I found I could get about easy. I had a lot of trouble with my legs as I had rheumatism and I couldn't get my shoe on my right foot to go out walking. Well, I thought, this is marvellous. No aches, no pains. I walked like I was when I was a little girl. We went down this little garden path from the house, and there were lots of other houses. It was like a suburban house. There were lots of other houses, a proper community. He said, we'll go into town. I thought, I didn't know they had towns when you were dead. It was quite a big town, but there were no shops, but all sorts of buildings and big places like art galleries and museums. They looked like you see in London, like in St Martin in the Fields and places like that, but there weren't any churches. He said, shall we go in? And I said, I'd rather walk around outside. There was no traffic and people were walking about in little groups, and children. There was laughing and there was marvellous music coming from one place. He said, we'll go there sometime, but not now. We want you to get your bearings and to get to know places and people. He introduced me to various friends of his and people I'd known. Some of them from years ago. I'd never have recognised them. He said, well, this is so-and-so. Don't you remember? I wouldn't have recognised them as they looked different. Time does things to people on Earth, but here they were all young. We walked further out and came to the country. It was like a country lane with beautiful trees. It was like being on Earth without all the noise and traffic. It was very real and homely. The green grass was beautiful, and there were lots of beautiful colours. Colour of the buildings looked like they were made of marble, and some looked like they were made of oyster shells. They were all pale pink and pale mauves and blues. My hair was just like I was when I was a girl. It was right down my back and jet black. Of course, on Earth, I got old and went grey and had it cut. Now I've got my beautiful head of hair. I was like a young girl skipping around, where up to that time I'd been hobbling about. I could only wear one shoe and had to wear a slipper. Now I'm learning to do various things and make things for people's houses, making decorations out of materials. Our houses are real, and the things in it are real. We have chairs and the necessities, and yet there are some things that we don't have that are missing that you'd associate with Earth. There are lovely materials here, and you can make and decorate things to your heart's content. There are animals, but they're not used like they used to be on Earth for consumption, and they don't use wool to make things. I've seen vast areas of animals, tame animals. They're so wonderful, you know. I'm not religious in that way, but I sort of like the old music, and I'm religious in a sense, but not narrow-minded. But I haven't seen a church, but I do believe that some people do have churches. I think religion is something that you live by. I'm still with my husband, and he spends a lot of time in the garden. He grows beautiful flowers, and you don't seem to get weeds here. I think if people on your side could get the idea into their heads that life here is natural to us as yours is to you, it's very similar. If only you could take away all the things that are depressing, all the nasty things. I've been to lots of places like libraries with wonderful books that you can take down and read, and as if the book speaks to you. There is everything there that you would want. You can sit there, close your eyes and hold a book in your hand, and everything in the book can be shown to you. Don't ask me how it's done, I don't know. I've been to theatres with concerts, and I listen to music. There are stages and plays with actors doing old plays that I remember seeing on Earth. They do old and new plays. I love the theatre where I used to go to the Old Vic. I didn't always understand them, but I always liked them. There are great natural parks and animals like zoos, but not in cages, and the animals aren't separated. They're free to roam, and they're tame. You can stroke them, even tigers and so on. I've seen the sky with the most beautiful colours, and there are sounds, especially when you go to the countryside. Nature has its own sounds and creates music. The countryside has flowers as tall as trees, and you can walk amongst them with all the different hues, colours and perfume. The sound that comes from them is music. There are thousands of beautiful birds. Our world is like yours, but much better, and without all the unpleasantries. It's perfect. I haven't visited any of the higher planes at all, as I'm quite content where I am. That will come later, I suppose. I've no desire to move. People say that you will. As you progress, you will go further afield. But I don't feel the urge. I'm happy as I am. Why should I want to change? Betty Green asks, can you think about going somewhere, then you find yourself there? Alice, I have done that. I've been with people who have gone to other places via concentration. You're not conscious of movement, but everything around you changes, and you're in different places. I haven't done much of that. Some people say that one should never be too content, otherwise you don't progress. Well, I'm content as I am, and of course, eventually I shall progress, no doubt. But I feel, well, what is time?